25 through 27 in Numbers. And so today, the goal and plan is we're going to finish this book. And just bear with me a little bit as it does jump around. Every chapter is kind of about something different. But we're going to tackle through it. And I put a star by chapter 32 because I think that's one of the most significant chapters at the end of this book. Okay. So if you'll turn your Bibles, to Numbers chapter 28. Actually, I'm not going to read from there, but I listed it because it came after what Brother Hall taught on. Chapter 28 was just another review of all of the offerings and sacrifices, and we covered that in depth, and the feast. And so I was going to skip that. Chapter 29 is continuing on that about the offerings and the feast. I will point out in chapter 29, for the first time, the Sabbath is mentioned as offerings given specifically on the Sabbath day in the morning and at night. And so when we had studied back in chapter 6 of Leviticus, I think, where that was talking about the different types of offerings, I don't think we mentioned Sabbath there because it hadn't been introduced yet, but it was introduced here. So that was significant. I'll tell you, the Lord mentions over and over, if you've caught it in the Old Testament and in these laws, about the Sabbath. It keeps coming up. To do certain things on the Sabbath like this about the offerings, which was not considered work. But the main thing was, right, rest. God wants us to rest on the Sabbath. And I think that's still important and relevant today. Do you all? You know, as we've went through some of these laws, we've kind of had to talk about what applies to today and what applied to them. Because we know the sacrifices and all of those type of laws, we don't do those anymore. We don't need to because of the blood and atoning work of Jesus. So then sometimes it comes up, well, what do we need to follow? How many of you all think the 10 Commandments are still relevant? What's one of the 10 Commandments about the Sabbath? It's still important today. And I really try to make an effort to not work on the Sabbath. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I haven't, okay? And I am not even talking about when your employer mandates it, because that's something you don't have a choice on. And since I chose a field in healthcare, I had to work a lot of Sundays until I got a Monday through Friday job. I couldn't do anything about that. But you know what? If there was an option to pick up a Sunday, I did not do that. I was not going to volunteer to work on Sunday. And so that's just something I encourage you to try to apply in your life. If you don't have to, try not to choose it. And then it's interesting, though, too, when does the Jewish day and calendar start day to day? Okay, and you're right.
Sabbath is the first day. Sunday is the first day of the week.
Okay, and what I meant by that was, when does a new day start for them? Sunset.
Sunset the next day.
So their Sabbath, because they don't recognize Sunday like we do with the resurrection of Jesus, is why our Sabbath is on a Sunday. Theirs is on a Saturday. And it starts Friday when the sun sets. That's when Sabbath starts. And it goes all the way through Friday night, Saturday day, Saturday night till the sun sets. That's a Sabbath. And I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you guys go back, maybe you want to refresh your memory on some of Tara Lee Cobble's videos. But she's been over there in the Holy Land. I've never been over there. But she said on Friday around 3 o'clock, there is so much hustle and bustle in the city, like Jerusalem, because they're about to shut down. The restaurants close, the shops close, because the Sabbath, because if the sun sets maybe 4:30 certain times of the year, when that sun goes down, they can't work. Isn't that cool how they honor it, though? I love how they really put emphasis on it. And I hate that a little bit some of our New Testament grace has caused us to no longer reverence certain things, you know? So just plant a little seed for you. Remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. God instituted offerings on this day, morning and night, in chapter 29.
Remember what Nehemiah did? He shut the gates on the Sabbath.
Yeah. He said, no buying and selling. We're not doing trading with you all on the Sabbath. That's right. All right, chapter 30. We're going to skip through this, but it was about laws regarding vows. And I just want to say to you on that vows are important to the Lord. Don't make one if you don't plan on keeping it. Can I just say that? Let's not be flippant with our words. Vows he takes seriously. Okay, chapter 31. We have here another story of a war that they're gonna have to take care of. And so, Brother Hall, will you read 31 verse 1?
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying,
Oh yeah, sorry.
Avenge the children of Israel of the Midianites afterward shalt thou be gathered unto thy people.
Okay, avenge the children of Israel of who? The Midianites. And what does he then tell him is going to happen to him afterwards? So Moses has gotten the call. He's gotten the knock on the door that your time's almost up. But before that, we've got to take care of the Midianites. 12,000 went to war against the Midianites. And so 12 is a famous number, right? We're always talking about the 12 tribes of Israel. So you know what they did? God said, take 1,000 from each tribe. So 12,000 went to war. And guess what they did with the Midianites? They sort of did good. They killed all the men and they killed the kings. So if you kill all the men, who's left? Okay. Before we talk about that, look at verse 8. Gil, will you read 31:8?
They slew the kings of Midian beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi and Recham, and Shur and Hur and Reba, 5 kings of Midian, Balaam, also the son of Beor, they slew with the sword.
Okay. Who died right there besides the kings? Balaam. Did you guys hear about Balaam again last week a little bit with Brother Hall? And me the week before? Yep, the talking donkey story. Do you all recall, pick your brain a little bit, and I think you may have some homework you're supposed to submit to Brother Hall. He passed out some sheets to you guys, some questions. But when Balaam was not able to curse the Israelites, as Balak had hired him to do, what did he do every time he spoke? Did he curse them? No. He did what then? He blessed them. He blessed them. But he was hired to curse them. And so we didn't find out in that story at that time. But will you read for me, look at verse 16 in this chapter, 31. Behold, these caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam. Let me back up to 15. Moses said unto them, have ye saved all the women alive? Verse 16. Behold, these caused, who's these? Going to be the women. Caused the children of Israel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against the Lord in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of Israel. So Moses is upset they spared the women because what Balaam did to get back at God, at his people, and bring a curse on the people, although he couldn't verbally do it, is he said, let me tell you what you do. You just intermingle your women, your sinful pagan women, with the children of Israel, and God won't like that, and he's going to have to curse them. So the Midianite women got mixed up with the children of Israel. And you remember it was Phinehas, right? When he caught one couple in the act, he kills them. And there was a plague that was going on until he had done that. 24,000 people, that's a lot of people, died. Israelites died in the wilderness because of the plague, because of their intermingling. So Moses is not happy that they've kept the women, because these women, in so much you could say, caused 24,000 people of his people to die. Okay? So this is why he has issue with them. So how does he deal with that? The women, as I told you, were the ones enticed the Israelites at the incident of Peor that provoked God's judgment. So Moses commanded that only the virgins be spared in the killings. So if they had not known a man, if they were a virgin, they lived. These women, Midianite women, maybe they were young girls or whatever, and they were absorbed into the Israelite population. Okay? And they had to become Jews or else die. Okay? So that's what happened here with the issue, with the war with the Midianites. Does anybody have any questions, comments on that?
So this, as I said last week, Midianites had to be a hard decision in some way because they were kin to Moses through marriage. Jethro's father-in-law was a Midian, right?
Yeah,
And so that there was some family
connection.
Some of those Midianites he knew from when he was tending sheep
Wow.
for those 40 years,
Yeah,
and he had to go take them out.
had to take them out. And the sad thing is, I remember being a child and hearing about some of the war stories and that they would kill the children, and it just bothered me so bad. You know, why would God kill the children? But what we have to understand is those children were born and raised up into that pagan culture. And the risk was that God couldn't take is that when they became adults, they would revert back to pagan culture and possibly be a threat to the people of God again. So God never delights in killing people. He made them just like he made us. But he could not allow sin. He was trying to not allow sin to get into the camp, into their culture. Okay? Quintel?
Maybe it's just me. I might get on with things like this.
Okay.
When I would, early in my walk with God, when I would hear stories like this, it didn't bother me. Because I was like, hey, he's the creator. He do what he wants. You know? And when it comes to children, I look at it as basically they go be with him anyway. So he'd be like, hey, y'all just come on home with me. And then they go be with him. They don't have to endure the hardships of life that we do. Yeah. They go be with the Lord. Yeah. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, if you are at the before the age of accountability, we kind of call it. That's right. So, okay. So they took care of business there. They had a lot of spoils. They gave a lot to the Lord from that in the rest of chapter 31 there. And then in chapter 32, as I told you, this is kind of an important pivotal chapter. What was God's goal and plan for them as they went into the promised land for all of the 12 tribes? 13 tribes. It's confusing. But what was the plan?
All across the Jordan.
All across the Jordan and enter into what land? Promised land. We call it also Canaan. Okay. So look at what happens here in chapter 32. Let me see which ones I'm going to read to you. It says, the children of Reuben, I'm going to start at verse 1, and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle, and when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that behold, the place was a place for cattle, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and to Eleazar the priest and unto the princes of the congregation, saying, all these names there in verse 3, even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel is a land for cattle, and thy servants have cattle. Wherefore said they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. So this land is fertile, and Gad here and Reuben, they want to stay there. How do you think that's going to go over with Moses? Yeah, that comes. But so far in the beginning, we just hear about Reuben and Gad, and then somebody else jumps on board here in a minute. But Moses was not happy about that. Look at verse 6. He says to Gad and Reuben, shall your brethren go to war and you sit here? Wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them? And he goes on and he kind of rebukes them because he says, this is what your parents did. This is what your fathers did. And he did not want them to make the same mistake that just cost them all an extra 38 years, total of 40, in the wilderness because they don't want to go over because they like this land. So he's not happy. But look at verse 16. They came near unto him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our cattle and cities for our little ones. But we ourselves will go ready armed before the children of Israel until we have brought them unto their place. And our little ones shall dwell in the fenced cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return into our houses until the children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on yonder side Jordan or forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side Jordan eastward. So I learned that Jordan runs north and south. It was a small, narrow area. They were not yet in the promised land, and they were in modern day Jordan now, but east of it. So they hadn't, crossed over. So they offer what? They say, we do want to stay here. And at first they made it all about their cattle, and then they brought up about their kids, shifted a little bit. We're going to build cities for our little ones, but we will go fight with you. We'll conquer the land, but then we want to come back and live here. Okay? So Moses chills a little bit when he hears that they're not trying to get out of fighting. They're not trying to get out of going to war with them. And Moses says in verse 20, if you'll do this thing, if you'll go armed before the Lord to war, and we'll go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord until he hath driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued, then afterward you shall return and be guiltless before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before the Lord. But if you will do not so, behold, you have sinned against the Lord, be sure your sin will find you out. Build you cities for your little ones, folds for your sheep, and do that which hath proceeded out of your mouth. So he basically gives them a blessing on it. If you'll go fight with us, you can keep this land. How do you all feel about this request and decision? Brother Hall?
Two things. One, notice in this, Moses didn't ask the Lord about it.
Okay.
He just made a decision.
Okay.
Number two, they settled for less when they could have had more.
Okay.
They settled for staying on this side of Jordan when they could have had more on the other side.
Because of what?
The eyes.
What they saw.
And some people do that spiritually,
Uh-huh.
application-wise. They settle for just a little bit on the earth instead of living to get to the other side of Jordan, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah. Okay. Here's where the half tribe comes in. Look at verse 33. And Moses gave unto them, even to the children of Gad, and to the children of Reuben, and unto half the tribe of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Zion, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the land, with the cities thereof in the coast, even the cities of the country round about. Now, if you remember several chapters back, we read and talked about where they had fought there and they had conquered that area. But I have some references like Dr. T.L. Lowry's book on the book of Numbers. He said their borderline attitude soon brought them into idolatry. This is called here the Transjordan tribes or the trans. Actually they are referred to later on. I just wanted you to know this: the Transjordan tribes. Trans meaning just across the Jordan. So if you hear reference to anybody teaching or you're reading and it says Transjordan, you know this means Gad, Reuben, and half the tribe of Manasseh are the ones that stayed basically behind. Yes, they went and fought, but this is where they asked to occupy. But I wanted to read you this verse from 1 Chronicles 5. If you want to turn there, you can. 1 Chronicles 5:25. Because if you say, well, what happened? Like, was this a bad thing? I would call this and contrast this as the permissive will of God and the divine will of God. Do you all think there's a difference?
Yes.
Yeah. We really get into that with the kings when they wanted a king. 1 Chronicles 5. I would call this the permissive will and not the divine will. Because the divine will was God said, you guys are supposed to go into the promised land and get all 12 of you. Okay? But 1 Chronicles 5:25 and 26, it says, and they transgressed against the God of their fathers and went a-whoring after the gods of the people of the land, whom God destroyed before them. And the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, and the spirit of Tilgath-Pilneser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Halah and Habor and Hara and to the river of Gozan unto this day. So you see what happened. It did not end well for them later on. They got all mixed up with the people of the land around them, and they were taken into captivity. Okay, so this was really not the plan and the will of God. And as Brother Hall pointed out, we really didn't see where Moses took this to the Lord. There were some other things that came up, like the last chapter, I didn't write it up here, but chapter 36, we have some girls who have no men, who wanted to know what about their inheritance. And Moses didn't know what to do with that. So you know what he did? He took it to the Lord. And he was like, what should we do? And God gave him instruction. But for some reason, when these people wanted to stay here and not go in all the way, Moses didn't ask God about it.
I think he personally got tired like a person. Kind of like, I know what I should do, but
I'm wore out at this point.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's a person at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
That one reason why it's on so much trouble is they wanted to get away from their leader, because Joshua was on the other side of Jordan with the other tribes, and so he wasn't over there making sure they were following after God and the commandments. So then they were basically doing their own thing.
Yeah, they really did not have a leader. You're right. Once they went back, and Joshua isn't the leader yet, but he's about to be, because Moses is getting ready to be called home. But yeah, that's a very good point, because when you don't have a leader, it's pretty scary what people will do. I mean, they were kind of having a rough time with a good leader, you know? And remember, this is the kids. This is not the group that has left Egypt, because they're because they're not inheriting. Everybody, how old were you? Do you all remember? If you left Egypt and you were a certain age and up, 20 years and up, when you left Egypt, you weren't going into the promised land. The kids, and the kids that they had while they were in the promised land, births were happening while they were there. Those were the ones that were going to go into the promised land. And that's who Moses is dealing with here, because most of them have died now through plagues, through rebellion, maybe some natural, but God has wiped out thousands at a time. Like I just told you, like 24,000 died in that one plague, So anyway, okay, this was important. I wanted you all to know this. It's important to seek the Lord in all things, even when you think you have a good reason. Please take it to the Lord and make sure He blesses it. Okay, chapter 33. Don't panic. I'm not going to read you that. That is a summary from Egypt when they left, and all the places that they went through in the wilderness, all the towns, the locations where they sat up camp and took camp down. He took you through all of that. Now, as I said, I'm not going to read it, but why is that in the Bible? If you're reading your Bible every day and you come to a chapter like that and you're like, oh man, that's a lot, that's hard to read. Why is this in here?
To remind you of everything that they
Okay.
pressure.
What else? What else? What is the Bible considered also, even maybe to the world? History. Nobody could record such detail if it hadn't happened. Okay? That's a lot of detail in chapter 33 and some other chapters too, genealogy and things. They're hard to read through. Numbers, censuses, they're hard to read through. But keep in mind, it's a historical document with great accuracy. And that helps support all this stuff we're talking about. It happened. Okay? All right. Chapter 34. Wait a minute. I did have something I wanted to read to you in 33. I'm sorry. Back it up. 33, 50 through 56. This is really important. After we get through the locations, 33 verse 50, it says, and this is over my Bible. I don't know how your Bible's set up, but like mine has a heading that says order to drive out the Canaanites. So this is like after they get there, what they're supposed to do. The Lord spake unto Moses in the plains of Moab by Jordan near Jericho, saying, speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them, when you are passed over Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall drive out what? All the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy what? All their pictures, and destroy what? All their molten images, and quite pluck down what? All their high places. And ye shall dispossess the inhabitants of the land, and dwell therein, for I have given you the land to possess it. And you shall divide the land by lot for inheritance among your families, and to the more you shall give the more inheritance, fewer you shall give the less inheritance. Every man's inheritance shall be in the place where his lot falleth, according to the tribes of your fathers you shall inherit. Now, here's the warning. But if you will not drive out the inhabitants of the land from before you, then it shall come to pass that those which you let remain of them shall be what? Pricks in your eyes, and what? Thorns in your sides, and shall vex you in the land wherein ye dwell. Moreover, it shall come to pass that I shall do unto you as I thought to do unto them. In verse 52 there, how many times does he say all?
3. 3.
I count 4.
4.
When God repeats something, why does he do that?
Trying to get your attention.
Is it important?
Emphasize
If he says it more than once, please take notice of it. It's important. He's not wasting his breath. Oh, cool.
the other thing would be.
Yeah.
When they got possession, if you go back and look at it, when I studied last week, Simeon and Reuben got less. Their tribes grew smaller because of what happened with Dathan and Abihu, and because of what happened with the people at Peor. They were the leaders in that sin. Most of them were 24,000 that died, and a lot of the tribe of Reuben died because of what Dathan did in Abiram. So I saw that when I did some studying, that they got less of an inheritance.
Mm-hmm.
And they said also because of what Reuben had did with his father.
I was going to say, when Jacob gave the initial, all the blessings, I don't think his was great.
No, but they also lost more when they rebelled with Nathan and Abiram.
Yeah, through the Balaam and the Peor incident. But I just wanted you guys to notice what God gave a clear command. You know, like sometimes God might give a command and you don't get all the details. He was really clear. He was like, you get rid, and notice he said drive out. It wasn't that he said you have to go kill them all, but he said you're going to inhabit the land. You got to drive them out.
Basically, you just got chased out of town.
Basically. Now, did some die? Of course, because they were going to fight, and they didn't just all like run out, you know, like they were scared to death and left them and just made it easy. So they fought. When you have a battle, people are going to die. But God's instruction unto them was to drive them out. All the inhabitants, all their pictures. What's a picture? All their right after pictures is molten images. So I would say anything that had to do with idol worship, got to go. And pluck down all their high places. What was a high place at that time? This was where pagan worship took place. Okay, they were called high places. They would build them, you know, like ziggurats. Y'all remember learning about that in history? And they would worship false gods and do idol worship and things and lots of sinful things. They would sacrifice children. I mean, it was a lot of terrible things that went on. But he said we got to get rid of all those high places because he's just going to have one place of worship, which is the layout of the tabernacle that we studied. That's where the worship's supposed to take place. Okay.
Why do you think that is?
One place.
Because the dangers of being led away from God if you don't have a direct leader. That's why you have a church.
Yeah.
That you have a direct leader to influence your worship and push you in the right direction instead of being turned to the left and to the right.
Amen. Amen. Okay. So you read the curse. You know what's going to happen if they don't drive them out. They're going to be harassed. It's going to be a thorn in their side, flux in their eyes, and he's going to do to them what he thought to do to the enemy. So keep that in mind. All right. Chapter 34, we get boundaries of Canaan for the first time. God lays out the land and their borders. Okay. There are 3 different seas mentioned in this section, which I thought was kind of cool, just to kind of take note of it when you read about them, that you know what they are. The Salt Sea is what? What do, we tend today to call it the Dead Sea. Why do we call it dead? Nothing can live in that much salt, and you're going to float whether you want to or not in it. If you don't know how to float, you're going to float in that sea. It's 33.7% salt. That's 10 times the normal. Okay, that's how unique it is. Okay, the Great Sea that's mentioned is the Mediterranean Sea. It's in verse 6. And then verse 11 is called the Sea of Chinnereth, and that's the Sea of Galilee. And so that's kind of special because that's where Jesus was a lot and did a lot of teachings, you know, by the Sea of Galilee. So it's a lot of locations are listed there. We won't read through the details. Chapter 35, this is a cool little part here. It says cities for the Levites. So you guys know that the Levites were not given the same type of land inheritance that the rest of them were, okay? Remember, the Levites also aren't going ever to war with them. So the Levites are a unique tribe, but they did still need a place to like keep their stuff and sort of live when they're not at the temple. So God gave them cities, okay? And there were actually 48 cities that he gave them. 48 cities. And then out of all of the 48 cities, they took 6 cities to be something called a city of refuge. And that was 3 in Jordan and 3 in Canaan. So a city of refuge, does anybody know what that is?
It's when somebody accidentally killed somebody, like we call manslaughter, could go
Okay.
and stay, and they'd have to stay to the death of the high priest. But they'd also have to be tried for the elders, and then they could only leave after the high priest died. And if they left before then the person's family member that wanted revenge could kill them illegally and get by with it.
Yeah, weird times, okay? So if somebody dies, it's because of 2 reasons, right? Either it was an accident or it was murder. And the only difference in the 2 is the heart, right? So like if I accidentally, I don't know, I can't even think of a good example.
We talked about if you're swinging an axe,
Yeah.
it comes off
Yeah.
and kills somebody.
Thank you. So we did have some examples actually here in the Word of an accident and somebody died, but that was still bloodshed, and it was still a death, and it was still blood that had to be atoned for. So, but for that person that they killed them on accident, they could go to and live at a city of refuge. Okay? Now, if they murdered them in cold blood, they don't get to go to a city of refuge. They're going to be killed as well. Because in this day and time where we are living, it was an eye for an eye, right? So, the difference was manslayer versus murderer, a matter of the heart. If you read through this section, you'll see the phrase avenger of blood. An avenger of blood was the closest male relative. So, let's say, for example, Brother Hall died in an accident. His son David would be the closest male relative, right? And now David, his son, wants to kill the person that killed him. Now, if it was an accident, David can't touch the one that killed him because he's living in the city of refuge. But if somebody killed him on purpose, David had the right to kill that one because he was the avenger of blood as the closest male relative. Does that make sense?
Also, these cities have to be close enough where a person can get there before the avenger of blood can get there.
And God gave them instruction, like where they were at. And guess who ran those cities? The Levites. The Levites. God gave them 48 cities to live in. 6 of them were cities of refuge. So, as what he was saying about the high priest. So, the question is, how long does this person have to stay, or get to stay, maybe we should say, in the city of refuge? How long do they live there? Well, the Bible tells us, if you want to look at verse 26 through 28, if the slayer shall at any time come without the border of the city of his refuge, whether he was fled, and the avenger of blood find him without the borders of the city, and the revenger of blood kill the slayer, he shall not be guilty. So in other words, if the person left voluntarily the city of refuge, that avenger of blood, the closest male relative, had the right to kill him because he left his protective place. Verse 28, because he should have remained in the city of his refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, the slayer shall return into the land of his possession. So you say, like, what is the connection here? Why does he have to stay until the high priest dies? Because it happened on the high priest's watch. And again, bloodshed is bloodshed, and it had to sort of be dealt with, atoned for. Look at verse 31. Moreover, you shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer. I like that God reminds, he takes no pleasure in any death, which is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. And you shall take no satisfaction for him that is fled to the city of his refuge, that he should come again to dwell in the land until the death of the priest. So you shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for blood it defileth the land. And the land cannot be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Does that kind of make sense? So it's kind of cool, I think, isn't it, how God created and established them to have like civilization and what to do when these circumstances would come up in life, accidental versus intentional, and how to deal with it. And he made a provision, and he made a safe place for the one to go to that was like, I didn't mean for that to happen. It was an accident. God took care of them. And I think that's beautiful how God does that. He takes care, and he had everything all planned out. Chapter 36 was just the last chapter about what to do with the inheritance. Guess what the answer was for the girls? Just marry within your tribe, and then you keep your inheritance. Nice, short, and sweet. So that was the answer on that. So guess what next week? We're starting Deuteronomy. Now, I know this is extremely rare. I never miss a Sunday. I don't think I've ever missed 2 Sundays in 1 month since I've been coming to this church in like 20-something years. But Joseph was invited to preach in West Virginia, and so we're taking him there. So Brother Hall is going to be teaching next Sunday, and then I'll be back. But you all will be starting the book of Deuteronomy. So if you want to listen to any of those videos from then, that would be good for you. And we're going to do a lot of summarizing for that book because it is a lot of summary itself. So please join us. And thank you guys so much. Love you all.